Xaku Prime is coming out on November 13th. That's like 2 weeks from now. I hope you guys are as excited as I am because Zaku is actually my second most played Warframe, right behind Gauss. And I'm stoked. I'm so happy to see Zaku get primed. I was really bummed out about it when Sevagat got announced, but I do enjoy Sevagat, so it doesn't really matter. So today's build is essentially just going over a Zaku that you can use in everyday Steel Path missions. Nothing too crazy, just something that'll bring you to the entire game, bring you to all of Steel Path. But yeah, you guys look at his abilities. His passive is essentially you get 35% evasion, so attacks that would hit you would just fly past you, or you know, essentially you'll dodge it. Also, for his first ability right here, it's Zata's Whisper, which essentially imbues all your weapons with void energy or void damage, which essentially creates a bubble around the enemy that then essentially attracts all projectiles, so both yours and the enemies. And yeah, so when it comes on to Zata's Whisper, whenever you have a weapon that has a lot of status chance, it also boosts it as well. And right here for the second ability, we have Grasp of Loke. This is one of Zaku's main known abilities, which essentially you rip the enemy's weapons from them, and essentially they become turrets. Right here we have the Lost. The Lost is three abilities all tied into one, which is one a armor strip for Gaze. For the Accuse, that is a essentially something similar to Revenant's Thrall. You create allies from the enemies. And for the third one, which is Deny, you fire a beam of condensed void energy, which does some decent damage, but it's nothing that is too crazy. Typically, me and most people would probably just use this for Gaze alone because it's the best of all of them. So yeah, so you'll need that for armor stripping. It locks down an enemy in one place, so you'll have essentially a perimeter where once an enemy walks into it, they'll just automatically be armor stripped. Please keep in mind this is not a permanent armor strip, so if the enemy leaves, after a while they will regain their armor or their shields. And this right here is Fast on Time, the fourth ability, which most people know essentially just because it makes Zaku into that spooky, scary skeleton vibe, which essentially it just sheds all your armor or all of your shell, and the projectiles deal a little bit of damage. It also slows the enemies, and this also increases the passive, your passive effectiveness. So essentially it goes up from 35, is it 35 or 25? One of the two, is either 35 or 25. This brings it all the way up to 75 evasion, so you actually dodge more. And this is one of the main ways Zaku survives. Essentially, you just dodge a bunch of stuff, right? So, looking into the actual build itself, we got right here. We have right here, we have corrosive projection in the aura. You could switch this out for anything. This is just what I had because it fits the polarity, and I didn't want to put an aura form in here. So we have power drip for extra strength. We have overextended, stretch, and auger reach for that maximum range. So when it comes on to actually taking the weapons from the enemies, we'll be having the most effectiveness. So when it comes on to taking the weapons from the enemies, we'll have the most effectiveness, as well as the streamline here for, efficiency. We have prime continuity, auger message for that extra duration because we are using transient fortitude, so we want to counteract that. And to also, when it comes on to the fourth ability, once the fourth ability Fast on Time is cast, you're able to essentially put all of your abilities on a timer, so none of them actually tick down. They'll just be there for ever, or for the duration of the Fast on Time. So having a lot of duration on the Fast on Time is very beneficial. And here I am showing off the arcanes, which is Arcane Energize and Multi Augmented for the extra strength, which ties into Power Drift, Umbral Intensify, and Transient Fortitude for that strength, topping us off at 259% strength, which is just enough. Well, not just enough. It's enough to get a full armor strip and do a bunch of damage. And this right here would be a budget Steel Path build. This would work pretty much the same. It's just that you'll be doing a lot less damage, but it'll be fine. And this right here would be for a newer player. So this is all you'd pretty much need to just run through the entire star chart. But yeah. And for today's build, we're not really looking too much when it comes on to weapons, but here are the Archon charts. We have 3 for strength, and one for more duration, and another one right here just for casting speed, just because, you know, it's to your taste. You could always swap it out for more duration or more strength, whichever one pleases you the best. Yeah, so when it comes on to the weapons that we have here, it's just the similar little loadout that I typically run, Tennocreate, Furious, Kratos. So let's go ahead and spawn in some enemies, so we could go ahead and take a look and see exactly how all the abilities actually work. So casting the Zata's Whisper, as you see when I shoot the enemies, you see the Void Bubble pull up. And as I said, this does work better with weapons that have higher status chance, because you have more chances of actually triggering the Void Bubble. And essentially what this does is, essentially every time you hit an enemy with this bubble on, you get a second instance of damage. It's similar to Toxic Lash from Saren. And casting his second ability, or their second ability I should say. You see here we got the turrets, and you see it will be doing a lot of damage. And the cool thing about this right here, Grasp of the Rogue, is it actually scales infinitely, because what you're doing is taking the weapons from the enemies that you're around. So what that means is that if you take the enemy from a level 1000 enemy, it'll be a level 1000 weapon. So it scales to the enemies, so you'll always be doing scaling damage. Or at least damage equivalent to the enemy's level. And this right here would be the effects of Accuse, where you essentially turn the enemies into allies. And as you can see, it does take up a lot of range, and it does affect all the enemies in that range. This right here would be the Gaze. Right now you can see all the enemies are armor stripped. And to fire off the Deny, which would be the beam. Not really seeing it too well. I did fire it off. So the armor strip, you can see Graphic Rope actually chewing through the enemies. Here it is. Here is the beam. Here's the beam right here. So this right here is the Deny. As you guys can see, it does do a little bit of damage, and it also gives the enemies the lifted status effect, so it lifts them into the air and hoists them up. Similar to the ability on Caliban, it just keeps them in the air, which is very effective when it comes on to, one, getting headshots, charging your Garnons, and just getting the enemies out of your way. Right? They're lifted there, they won't be able to do anything. It's a great way to make sure that you're safe. Right, and right here I'm going to go ahead and cast a fourth, which is fast on time. Boom. Now I'm completely in my skeletal form. And as you can see down by the bottom right, all of the timers are actually halted. So let's go ahead and unpause these enemies so you guys can see the evasion. And yeah, when it comes on to the Excellence slot, as you guys know, I don't have Prime short-footed as yet, and I'm not running Nairu. So if you have Prime short-footed, go ahead and slot it in, because actually falling down would probably be the easiest way, or the way to die when it comes down to the Zaku. So you might want to just go ahead and slot on Prime short-footed if you have it. I do have the normal short-footed, but I just can't. I just won't be able to. I just don't think it's beneficial enough to put it in, especially when it comes on to like power drift giving me
life support has
some of the knockdown resistance. And right here you guys can see I'm running the Steel Path mission to show you guys exactly how to perform the end mission in like a 10-minute survival. I did have to cut some of this footage out shortly because my little nephew was here. I was babysitting him, and he started bugging me, so I had to go ahead and pay him all my attention. So I had to like cut out a bunch of this because the audio got messed up. comes on to Zaku, their playstyle is pretty active because, you know, when it comes on to moving around, and the faster moving around, the worse the enemy's aim is, and that also just benefits highly when it comes on to your passive. Also, Zaku is a somewhat of a fragile Warframe. They're not too tanky, so moving around and, you know, causing a bunch of havoc is a big part of the playstyle when it comes on to actually using Zaku.
I've delivered a life support capsule to the area. Activating it will buy you more time. Support on the way. Another life support capsule is now available.
And I believe right here is about we are the first acolyte. Yep. This is where Angst spawns in. And as you guys can see, I didn't even need the armor strip. I didn't even need to shoot at him. I just walked, and the turrets handled him for me, or handled them for me. So, as you guys can see, this build is like very, very strong. You don't need to really worry about when it comes on to like putting out damage.
The raid is off to a successful
Because as I said, when it
start.
comes on to Grasp of Log, it is scaling damage, so you'll always be doing damage equivalent to the enemies in the mission that you're doing. And the key tip when it comes on to like survival missions, as I said, you do want to keep your force ability up at all times. However, when it comes on to actually running survival missions, something that I would recommend would be to essentially every now and then let the abilities run out, while like let Grasp of the Loaf run out and then recast it, so you're then getting new weapons from newer enemies, because as you know, in a survival mission or any endless mission, the levels of the enemies will slowly go up or drastically go up depending on if you're in the circuit or not. They'll increase with time, so you want to go ahead and recast that ability every now and then to grab fresh weapons from higher level enemies to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible and as effective as possible. Okay, so this is probably right around here I had to cut the video because, you know, my nephew and stuff. It's right over here I had to cut the video, but then I came back to essentially show you guys a different synergy when it comes on to weapons that you could use from, because I was just using the Lieutenant Glaxion because it was the weapon equipped at the time. I didn't necessarily go ahead and make this loadout specifically for Zaku, because Zaku could really use pretty much any weapon that you put into their hands. But when it comes on to the Lieutenant Glaxion, this was something I had in hand at the time. So right now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a different synergy, which is something akin to what you would use on Saren. Saren is a known user of the Sobek or the Kuva Sobek, whichever one you want to use. I'm going to use the Kuva Sobek right now. And before that, I'm showing you guys the companion, which is just Nautilus, and it's my normal Nautilus and normal Verglass build. There's nothing different here. I'm just showing it to let you guys see, but this is the one that I have, that I always use in most of the videos whenever I'm using Nautilus. And right here is the Kuva Sobek build that I'm using. I'm using a Acid Shells and Clip Delegation build. This is not the best or the most effective Sobek build, so do keep that in mind. This is just a build that I typically just run whenever I'm going through normal missions. Nothing that I ever really think about using when it comes down to its effectiveness per se. But right here is like me showing you guys exactly how it works. So typically use armors for the enemies after casting your first ability, and essentially the damage or the ticks of damage that you do from using the first ability, and the fact that Acid Shell does blow up or explodes, that next projected energy or our damage is then reflected on the enemies once more, so causing 2 instances of damage. Like, here we go, pretty much get rid of all the enemies in one shot. So this is a build that you guys could use, or a synergy that you guys could always use. Please keep in mind that you will, well, not necessarily will have to, but it does work out a lot better if you're using the Gaze to armor strip, or using something like Terrify. I just prefer to use the Gaze. I guess Terrify does work out a lot better in certain circumstances because you're more mobile while using Terrify. But this is just a no helmeted build that I have. Yeah, and here I am showing off my fashion. Hope you guys like it. Let me know if you don't. Let me know if you do. And this is my typical color scheme. I think it's pretty cool. I think this purple and gold thing is like really cool. And then this right here is just something that I tried out. And yeah. Well, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are excited for Zaku. Have a wonderful day. Peace.